Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about stuff. Don't forget to leave a comment. Tell me what your favorite cryptocurrency is and why everyone else should be buying it right now. I don't know what's going on, and I know that I keep on saying the phrase, if you haven't been here for the last couple of videos, this is mainly because if I'm creating something every 24 hours, at some point people are going to miss some piece of information. The current financial, economic world news that we have right now is that the US dollar is fading. The US dollar is collapsing. The US dollar doesn't have much longer. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's constantly being said by a number of CEOs, by the people from BlackRock, by the people from JP Morgan. And usually, if you can be more realistic about it, these are the people who kind of like stand up for the US dollar and the Fed, and they talk about their policies and other kinds of things. We've had news a couple of times in the last few weeks. I don't remember the names of all the banks. It was like 5, 6, 7 days ago. There was a news story, in case you missed it. I think it was Bank of America, JP Morgan, Fidelity, BlackRock, and other institution came forward, and they all said in unison, if the tariffs don't get under control, if the US debt doesn't get under control, if the US dollar isn't strengthened, which it probably will not be, they all said in some form or fashion to look in the direction of Bitcoin. And that's the even weirder part, because historically, we would hear them say, look towards the bond market for a more secure and stable return on your money, look towards gold, or look towards some other type of uncorrelated investment, usually art or some kind of a collectible. You'll hear this a lot as well if you follow financial news. A lot of institutions are out of nowhere into the idea of like collectibles as like a thing that has no correlation to the stock market, and therefore it's like a safe way to also park some of your money. The addition is now also like Bitcoin as well. And it's weird to me because this is something that we were waiting for a number of years, for institutions to finally like say these things out loud. Hey, Bitcoin is a good store of value. Bitcoin's uncorrelated to stocks. Bitcoin is all these things. And now that it's happening, magic trick, once again, because of the amount of people so low who are actually in crypto, who are paying attention to the things that these people are saying. We've had a lot of price predictions recently from banks and institutions talking about Bitcoin this year skyrocketing in price because of institutional adoption, because of the amount of inflows that we're having into ETFs. If you've missed any of the last couple of videos as well, we had news that I think over the course of a 2-day period, it was like almost $1 billion actually going into the Bitcoin ETFs. And then over the course of 5 or 6 days, like Monday through Friday, I think there were over $3 billion just within the United States Bitcoin ETFs. And there's also the anticipation of more of them dropping. So this news, as it were, from the title, comes from BlackRock, who, and I'll say it this way in the nicest way possible. Usually, alwaysly, rich people signal to each other that something's happening is going to take place. A lot of people in crypto, I think, forget this quite fast, especially if they don't see instantaneous results in prices or movements in some form or fashion. This echoes way back to 2023 when we heard BlackRock and Larry Fink discussing that people need to get into Bitcoin when Bitcoin's price was like at $15,000. That news then makes sense when Bitcoin goes to $109,000, but for some reason never before. BlackRock has announced that Bitcoin is starting to play an increasingly critical role in institutional investment portfolios. Robbie Mitchnick, who is the head of the firm's digital asset unit at BlackRock, said that Bitcoin is breaking away from its correlation with tech stocks, and it's now becoming riskier not to own Bitcoin. The institutional inflows that we've seen, sorry that I'm all over the place, but it's really difficult because this isn't like a one-layered thing. You would assume, based on the topic, it's kind of like cut and dry, and it's like A, B, and C. It's the entire alphabet. We have the United States talking about buying Bitcoin. We have individual states talking about buying Bitcoin. We have central banks buying Bitcoin. We have large banks around the world buying Bitcoin. We have sovereign wealth funds buying Bitcoin. And I told you this years ago as well, not only the rich signaling thing to each other, how do you say it? I forgot what they're called. They give like counsel. I can't remember the exact term to companies and countries as to like what the current trends are, where to move your money. We went over the last couple of weeks because it is hyper relevant when it comes to the actual US tariffs. They're causing havoc and chaos within the actual capital markets. But the other part that many of you might not actually know is that it's actually causing a permanent capital flight from the United States. A lot of countries are dumping American bonds. They're dumping American treasuries. They're selling them, not in a like rapid pace, but they're doing like 1% every week so that at some point they have no risk anymore for what could be happening to the United States economy as things appear that they're going to get worse, as we've been going over. The only real mediator for this is the actual Fed. Soon, people are expecting this week or next week, question mark, that the Fed is going to announce that they're going to lower interest rates in May, or that they're going to lower interest rates in June, or that they're going to lower interest rates in July, and no one really knows. That news will cause asset prices to move up, but inflation of the US dollar will also rapidly increase as well. So the crossroads where we currently are, in the weirdest sense and fashion of all of it, is seeing in real time, that the US dollar is faltering, seeing that the US economy needs an immense amount of help, but it's needed help since 2001, and it hasn't gotten any of it except for more money printing, devaluing the actual currency. If you didn't see, there was another video, I think it was towards the beginning of April. We had news again from BlackRock where they were stating, and Larry Fink said this, the CEO of BlackRock, this is like when you hear this, like imagine like the ground literally shaking around you. These people basically own everything on the planet in asset form in some sort of way. And they're openly announcing to people, the US dollar's done. The US dollar's cooked. And what did Larry Fink say? He said, if the US doesn't get it, watch the video. He said, if the US doesn't get it under control, the US dollar will be replaced by Bitcoin. Hearing that institutions are buying up tons of Bitcoin in every single video, the ETFs hold almost 2 million Bitcoin. That's a real number, almost 2 million Bitcoin in 16 months or something along those lines. MicroStrategy is really trying to get to 1 million Bitcoin as fast as humanly possible. So is Capital 21 and a bunch of other companies who have also recently sprung up, announcing that they're going to be doing the exact same thing as MicroStrategy and Capital 21, like I told you in the other video. And this is why we're getting these like $500,000 Bitcoin price predictions for this year. If you missed one of the other videos, the amount of Bitcoin on crypto exchanges right now hasn't been this low since November 2018. And even that is probably like a little bit off because that was a couple of weeks ago. And nearly every single week, there's tens of thousands of Bitcoin being taken off of exchanges. Thus, the idea of like, it's risky to not own Bitcoin. This is what I always keep saying. And I mean, you have to think of it from a diversification and also like a futuristic standpoint. I know that not everyone cares for Bitcoin. That's probably going to be one of your greatest economic follies. When you talk about what big money does, this is why diversification actually matters. You mathematically cannot afford for Bitcoin to go to 1 million, 2.4 million, $7 million, and you don't own any. You have to, when you think about how investments work, a lot of times, so like, let's say, I remember hearing something, there was some basketball player who over the course of the last 20 years after he retired, he began to throw his money at multiple different things. And he went on to an interview and they were like, yo, you're intelligent, you're super smart. He was like, no, when you have $100 million, what you do is you throw $1 million at everything. You have about 15 that end up sticking. They do pretty well. And then you have 3 that do exceptionally well. And these are the ones that get you onto the Forbes list and all these other things. And then people go, wow, this guy knew what he was doing. It's like, no, you throw your money, you diversify, then eventually one of them sticks. The stickiest cryptocurrency in the room right now is Bitcoin. The one that's being adopted the most is Bitcoin. The one on every institutional tongue is Bitcoin. I don't get how people still don't have even a small allocation. I said this in other videos back when Bitcoin was 22,000. And even more so, if you want to be honest, back when Bitcoin was at $3,000. I was like, if you don't have any, I don't know what to really tell you. You have to at some point be realistic and be like, let me have an allocation. And it's not a huge, gigantic $30 billion sum of money. If you can get to 1 million Satoshis, that's 0.01 Bitcoin, at least you have an allocation in it. If Bitcoin goes to multiple millions of dollars, gosh darn it, at least you have some. But to have none, when we're hearing about all of this stuff during the actual thing, this other Bloomberg analyst, he said large institutions are looking for digital gold. They want to hedge against inflation and market volatility. They want an indestructible currency, and it's Bitcoin. So hopefully everyone is more laser focused. We keep getting news like this all the time. And realistically, more retail investors continue to leave the market as prices aren't pumping. But this is also part of the magic trick, basically waiting for poor people to leave the market. This is what happens in every single asset class. You wait for the lower income people to be flushed out of it. You keep buying all of it. It's not even in secret, in public. And then at some point they own all of it and everyone gets really angry. Why do they own everything? Well, they were the only ones buying for the last 16, 17 years. Yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Hope you're all doing well. Hope that you've all enjoyed. I know there's a lot going on. I see a lot of frustration on Twitter and online. I always peruse and see what's going on. There's a lot of optimism as well, which is great. Even more optimism than before from retail. But realistically, we need to blast by a number of price barriers. And the current number that we're getting is 109 to 110,000 for the market to like really have new life breathed into it. So looks like we're on our way, but yeah. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.